Scientists dug up 127 bodies buried beneath ancient Rome. They ran their DNA expecting to confirm 2,000 years of history. Every single result came back wrong. The Romans we were taught about never existed. So who were they really? In 2019, a small team of geneticists sequenced the DNA of 127 individuals buried across the Italian peninsula, some in grand Roman mausoleums, others in unmarked graves on city outskirts. They expected to confirm what every history textbook had told them for generations. They were wrong. What they found instead would ignite a firestorm in academic circles and force us to ask a question we never thought we'd have to ask. Who were the Romans, really? For centuries, Western civilization built its identity on a very specific image of Rome. Tall, olive-skinned Italic warriors descending from legendary Trojan prince Aeneas, a proud, singular bloodline, the pure Roman stock that conquered the known world through sheer martial genius and cultural superiority. This idea wasn't just romantic mythology, it was politics, it was policy. As late as the 20th century, fascist regimes in Italy and beyond evoked the Roman bloodline as justification for racial hierarchy. The image of Rome as an ethnically homogeneous empire of conquerors was enormously convenient for those who wished to claim its legacy. But archaeology had been quietly whispering a different story for decades. Ancient tombstones in Rome mention citizens born in Syria, Egypt, Gaul, and Judea. Latin inscriptions carry Greek, Aramaic, and Berber personal names. The evidence was there. No one had looked at the DNA. Roman law granted citizenship broadly. The Edict of Caracalla, 212 CE, extended it to virtually all free inhabitants of the empire, across North Africa, the Near East, the Balkans, and Western Europe. Yet we assume this legal diversity did not translate into genetic diversity. The DNA evidence says otherwise. Ancient DNA research is extraordinarily difficult. Human remains degrade, bones crumble. The genetic material inside them fragments, corrupts, and mingles with the DNA of soil bacteria, fungi, and the archaeologists who excavate them. For decades, extracting reliable genetic data from individuals dead for 2,000 years was considered nearly impossible. Then two revolutions happened simultaneously. Sequencing technology became cheap enough to read billions of DNA fragments, even broken, corrupted ones. And statistical modeling became sophisticated enough to reconstruct an individual's ancestry from those fragments, piecing together where their ancestors came from, the way you might reassemble a shattered mosaic from thousands of tiny chips. The 2019 study, published in Science magazine, did exactly this for 127 individuals from sites across Rome's history, spanning from 900 BCE to 1200 CE. The results covered more than 2,000 years of continuous occupation in the same city. No study of this scale had ever been attempted for any ancient civilization. Here is the first bombshell. The earliest individuals buried at Rome, those from the pre-Republican and early Republican periods, the people who literally built the city, do not genetically resemble modern Italians. They cluster most closely with populations from the ancient Near East, from the Levant, from Anatolia, what is now Turkey. This shouldn't surprise historians of the Bronze Age. We know that a wave of Anatolian farmers spread across Europe roughly 8,000 years ago, eventually mixing with local hunter-gatherers. But what surprised researchers was how strong this Near Eastern signal remained in early Rome and how suddenly it shifted. In the skeletal record around the 3rd and 2nd centuries BCE, exactly the period of Rome's explosive military expansion and the Punic Wars, the genetic profile of the city changes rapidly. New ancestry components appear. The city's population was not simply growing, it was being replaced and remixed at staggering speed. During the height of the imperial period, roughly 1 CE to 300 CE, The DNA of individuals buried in Rome shows a profound transformation. The city's genetic signal becomes overwhelmingly Eastern Mediterranean, Levantine, Greek, North African, Syrian, not because of invasion, because of trade, because of slavery, because of the mechanics of empire itself. At its peak, Rome may have held 1 million people within its walls, the largest city in the Western world by a factor of 10. Only a fraction of them were born there. The ancient world's greatest port at Ostia was a revolving door for merchants from Alexandria, traders from Carthage, enslaved people from Judea and Syria, sold at Roman auction blocks. Greek physicians and tutors brought to educate aristocratic families. Imperial Rome, genetically speaking, looked far less like modern Italy and far more like a genetic melting pot that would feel familiar to any resident of present-day New York, London, or Paris. The cosmopolitanism was not just cultural, it was biological. Researchers found that imperial period Romans clustered genetically with modern Lebanese, Syrians, and Cypriots, not with modern Northern Italians or Western Europeans. The Western European genetic ancestry that characterizes modern Italy arrived significantly later, during and after the fall of the Western Empire, carried by Germanic migration groups, including the Visigoths, Lombards, and Ostrogoths. Among the ancient Roman genomes, researchers identified individuals with significant sub-Saharan African ancestry, buried not in slave quarters or pauper graves, but in standard Roman burial sites, indistinguishable in grave goods from their Italian-born neighbors. This is not surprising when you consider the archaeology. Emperor Septimius Severus, who ruled Rome from 193 to 211 CE, was born in Leptis Magna in what is now Libya. His mother's family was Roman Italian, his father's family was Punic Berber, with likely ancestral ties to Carthage. He is often depicted in paintings and sculptures as a dark-complexioned man, and the DNA record suggests he was not an outlier. North Africa, modern Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, was the breadbasket of the Roman Empire. Its people, its culture, and its genes flowed north continuously. The Sahara was not a barrier, it was a corridor. Then something extraordinary happens in the genetic record. Around the 4th and 5th centuries CE, precisely when historical sources document the so-called barbarian invasions, the DNA of people buried in and around Rome abruptly shifts again. Western and Northern European ancestry surges. Steppe-derived genetic signatures, markers associated with ancient migrations from the Pontic steppe, the vast grasslands north of the Black Sea, appear suddenly in significant proportions. These are the genetic fingerprints of the Goths, the Lombards, the Franks. For the first time, the ancient DNA gives us a biological timestamp on historical events we previously knew only from written sources and battlefield archaeology. The fall of the Western Roman Empire isn't just a political story or a military story. It's a story written in chromosomes, confirmed across dozens of skeletons buried in Italian soil. And paradoxically, it is this post-Roman Germanic influx that shaped the genetic profile of modern northern Italy. If the DNA tells us anything with absolute clarity, it is this. Roman identity was never about ethnicity. It was never about blood purity. It could not have been because the blood was always mixed, always flowing, always changing. What made you Roman was something the Romans themselves called Romanitas, a concept roughly translatable as Romanness. It meant speaking Latin, following Roman law, honoring the gods of the Roman pantheon, or at least tolerating them, wearing the toga, participating in the civic rituals of Roman public life. The Roman Empire's greatest and most radical achievement was not its roads or its aqueducts. It was a system of identity that could absorb a Syrian merchant, an Egyptian philosopher, a Gallic soldier, and a Berber emperor, and make them all, unambiguously, Roman. This isn't nostalgia or wishful thinking. The genetics confirm it. The Romans themselves wrote about it explicitly. The Emperor Marcus Aurelius, celebrated as one of history's greatest philosopher-rulers, was of Spanish descent. His adoptive grandfather, Emperor Trajan, who expanded Rome to its greatest territorial extent, was born in Hispania. The most Roman of all Romans were often not Roman at all. When the 2019 study was published, the reaction from mainstream historians and geneticists was largely one of confirmation and excitement. But online and in certain political spaces, the reaction was fury. For decades, centuries, certain ideological movements have claimed Rome as their cultural ancestor. They're proof that Western civilization is the product of a racially distinct people. The DNA study didn't just complicate that narrative, it demolished it at the molecular level. This is not, of course, the first time science has been used as a battlefield for identity politics. But the specificity of the evidence here is remarkable. You can look at the isotope ratios in a tooth found near the Colosseum and determine that its owner spent their childhood in North Africa. You can sequence the mitochondrial DNA of a woman buried in a Roman cemetery and find her maternal lineage traces to the Caucasus. The bones do not argue. They do not have political opinions. They simply are what they are. And what they are, overwhelmingly, is diverse. What about modern Italians? Where do they fit into this story? The answer is fascinating and, to many, unexpected. Modern Italians, particularly those from northern Italy, share relatively little genetic continuity with the citizens of Imperial Rome. The post-Roman Germanic migrations of the 5th through 8th centuries introduced a substantial northern and western European genetic component that permanently altered the peninsula's genetic landscape. Southern Italians and Sardinians, interestingly, show greater genetic continuity with pre-Roman and early Roman populations, preserving more of that ancient Bronze Age Mediterranean and Near Eastern ancestry. In other words, the people who live in Italy today are not the direct descendants of the Romans who built the Colosseum and composed Virgil's Aeneid. They are rather the descendants of the Romans, the Goths, the Lombards, the Byzantines, the Normans, and the Aragonese. A layered archaeological dig of human genetic history contained within a single modern population. Which is, when you think about it, perfectly Roman. The Roman Empire lasted for nearly 1,000 years in the West and another 1,000 in the East. It absorbed, integrated, and transformed dozens of cultures, languages, and peoples. Its genius was never its bloodline. Its genius was its capacity to make belonging possible for anyone willing to speak its language and follow its laws. The DNA doesn't rewrite the story of Rome. It reveals it in all its full, complex, deeply human messiness for the first time. Rome was not a race. Rome was an idea. And the bones buried beneath the eternal city are the molecular proof of that idea, written in the chemical alphabet of life itself. If that doesn't make you want to know more about the ancient world, I don't know what will.